In this series of sessions we call The True North, we hope to show everybody, citizens, immigrants, and refugees alike, why our unique beliefs have made our Canadian way of life possible, and why we need to understand and strengthen those beliefs if Canada is to have a bright future. Those who like our way of life but don't like our beliefs must be brought to understand this truth. It's our foundational beliefs that have made our way of life possible, and not the other way around.
So thank you so much for joining us, John. I guess we'll get right to it. I got a lot of questions for you, so do you mind if I get started?
Go for it.
All righty. So as a Christian, you've taken some odd perspectives on your Analogy Man sites. Some perspectives and leanings that I've never really heard before. Do you mind explaining those to me and how you came about the site?
I know that people get bored if they hear the same thing over and over again. You got to hit them from a different perspective. An Analogy Man takes stuff that they're familiar with, but puts a twist on it with stuff that they're not familiar with. And I think it gets their attention, and that's exactly what we need.
For instance, one of the slogans that you have on your site, it says, I believe, you're closer than you think. What do you mean by that?
People are all going through life looking for pieces of the puzzle. I think everybody's looking for answers. And sometimes they actually have them, and they actually have them in their hand, but they don't know they're an answer. It takes someone that has found the bigger picture to say, hey, brother, you got a piece of the puzzle there. And I've actually been able to say to some people, like, if you've seen The Matrix, how interesting it is, it's got about 6 pieces of the puzzle. And all I do is I say, hey, I followed those pieces, and it came to, I can now tell you it's as close to the truth as you can get without knowing the truth. And my job, I guess, is to get you a little closer.
Right. The journey to the truth is almost an incremental thing where each independent source of truth has to be connected together.
Absolutely.
It's almost like navigating in outer space. Yeah. You need the stars to be able to know your position. Yeah. Same with sailors and all the rest of it. Do you feel qualified with that job of connecting the dots, of navigating outer space?
I think so. The reason is, I don't think I'm being arrogant to say I've lived through this. Right. I started out when I was a little boy. I was born in Germany after the war. We didn't have enough to eat. Times were tough. We didn't have a lot of future. And even as a little kid, I remember one time going to the window, looking into the fields at the back of my house and saying, I don't know how much of this I can put up with. I still remember that. And I said, there's got to be an answer to this. I am going to find it. And my whole life has been spent, for instance, I started diarizing, reading. I do more reading than the average. And okay, why? I'm looking for a purpose. I'm looking for a reason. And when you're looking for purpose and reason, there's enough pieces out there. If you keep looking, you will find it. And that's the encouragement we're trying to let, especially young people here in Canada, know.
Do you think the bridge leading to truth in this nation is out? As they say, the bridge is out?
Oh, like very definitely. I'm going to cover some of that as we go along, but I've been down the road and I've seen the bridge out, and all I'm actually doing with True North is I'm laying back down the road saying, the bridge is out. Please listen to me. I'm not the authority on everything, but I can tell you when the bridge is out.
Certainly I don't think the news media or films are going to do a lot of people justice in their quest for truth. Do you think the news more or less perpetuates a really bad narrative, a really pessimistic narrative? How do you think the news plays into the culture's mindset?
I think the news is really realistic. They film all the murders, they film all the hatred, all the bitterness, the trouble, right. The bombs, and they film it all. And everybody in this culture ought to be freaked out. I started as a kid. Remember Don McLean?
Yep.
Remember American Pie?
Oh, yeah.
Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't take one more step. Right? That was me as a kid. Oh, yeah. But I grew up in the 60s. You know what it was like in the 60s? There was always the chance that we'd be nuked. People were building bomb shelters. I'm talking about Ontario. Mm-hmm. Right? We were always afraid that we're not going to make it. And I mean, ever since, there's been nothing but bad news, and it's always there.
Yes. I remember seeing footage one time of children, like a little public service announcement where the kids would hide under their desks to fend from a nuclear bomb. Like, that'll do much. And speaking of nuclear holocaust and the constant fear of destruction, I think you and I both agree that we both see in films nowadays that is constantly depicted of destruction, mayhem, and dystopia. Like, explain that a little bit, because I know you're a film buff.
You know, there's a lot of dystopian films, and what I mean by that is, it used to be when I was a kid, there'd be a big calamity, like, you know, the Blob or whatever, or the Thing from outer space, but there'd always be somebody to save the day at the very end, and you had a relief when you left the theater. Well, now, for instance, what I'm thinking of, Skyline. Aliens come, and they pulled a population by some force into their spaceships. The movie ends like that. Everybody gets taken.
No hope.
No hope, no resolution. Folks, you got to have a resolution, and there's no resolution. All they do is they raise issues, but they don't close them. For example, the films now are really graphic, and they're exciting, but they leave you hanging. For instance, Armageddon. Do you remember the lines the narrator gives at the very beginning of the movie?
Yeah, it's certainly been a long time, but I know what you're talking about. I think he says, like, there's a meteor coming to Earth, and he says, like, you know, this is when the dinosaurs roamed the planet, and it was lush and fertile, I think he says. But then a 6-mile long rock hits the Earth. But then at the end of it, he says, this has happened before, this will happen again. Yeah, that gives a lot of encouragement and hope, right?
Yes, sir.
Because it's imminent. It's going to happen again.
Yeah, you add that to all the other things that are coming, you know, the lack of jobs, world wars brewing, diseases and all that. If we eliminated all that, we still got this rock coming our way, maybe. So, I mean, all it does is it raises a lot. Look, it raises a lot of fears, which I had when I was a boy, right, with the nuclear war. Right. But we had something then that helped us with the fear that we don't have anymore. That's what I mean. The bridge is out.
What do you mean by that? What did we used to have that we don't have anymore?
I was raised in the public school system back when in the mornings we'd sing "God Save the Queen." Even I didn't even know what that meant, but I said, "Oh, God save the Queen," right? And we'd say the Lord's Prayer, "Deliver us from evil." We'd sing "O Canada," "True North, Strong and Free." We believed in God. God keep our land. And even as a child, I wasn't sure if I could believe in God, but my parents seemed to believe in Him. My teachers seemed to believe. So I kind of hung on to that.
It was a tradition that's obviously been around in North America for millennia almost, you know. And it seems, in my personal experience, it's one of the most quickly vanishing assets of society that we see. And in the next session, I think it would be good to focus on that, where Canada's roots were.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Articles of Confederation, all of those, most of those men were Christians, and they've reflected those Christian values in their documentation. You want to talk about that next time? That'll be an interesting topic to go over.
Yeah. Let's hope that there's some people out there that want answers, but are willing to get pieces of the puzzle. Even though if they don't understand what I'm saying exactly, if they get some of these concepts into them, I think it'll click for them like it did for me and for others.
Awesome. Well, join us next time for True North Session 2. Thank you very much.